I think like many undergraduates, I was excited about learning about the tropics, but having grown up in St. Louis, my exposure was mostly through the Missouri Botanical Garden. And they were working on the flora of Panama, and there were a lot of graduate students. Some were my teaching assistants, and I was very frustrated as an undergraduate that I could not get credit or take the graduate course in tropical ecology. So I fought back, and I applied for an NSF grant for undergraduate research, got $500, which Washington University matched, and I got to go to Darien, Panama in 1963 after my sophomore year, and it changed my life. So I got to see trees that I could not imagine in a forest that just was astounding, and a threat for the Pan American Highway, because we were following what had been the trail to construct the last part of the Pan American Highway through Darien to connect with Colombia. And I was having a hard time imagining what that landscape would look like after a road came through. And of course the road hasn't been built yet, and hopefully won't be. But in 1963 it looked eminent, and so we were doing what probably today would be called salvage ecology and doing transects. And I was really impressed with the landscape, but especially the rivers. Our transportation, we flew into Yavisa, we got on big dugout canoes and went up the Rio Chuquinaqui with Choco Indian guides, stopping at thatch roofs and sampling our way. And the first macrobrachium I ever saw, a freshwater shrimp the size of a lobster, was in the Rio Chico, which is a tributary for the Chuquinaqui, on the end of a spear from Choco, bringing it in for food. And the whole idea of something this big in fresh water, because I had studied Ozark streams and crayfish, they're about this big, and beautiful yellow spots, I just fell in love with macrobrachium. And we've had a relationship that goes now over from Puerto Rico to Yucatan to Costa Rica, because they're like over 90 species and so on and so forth. So even though I started out in botany, and I got very interested in riparian vegetation and various kind of things, I got quite excited about decapods. And I have been studying decapod feeding behavior and ecology ever since. And so it really paid off, I think, in terms of as an undergraduate. But then when I went to graduate school, it was hard to know what exactly to do. That was 1965. And my advisor at that point was Owen Sexton, who was a herpetologist, and he told me to apply to Yale University and work with G.E. Hutchinson. So I did that, and Hutchinson was very interested in lakes, was writing a treatise on limnology, but the word river was very rarely spoken. It was inflow and outflow. And at that point, there really weren't people working on river ecology, at least that I knew of. And so I studied lakes, I studied lake history, did my work in Yucatan. I went from northern Yucatan into Guatemala, into Lake Petén, saw some beautiful primary forest, or what thought to be primary forest. And so it's been quite exciting, but I think I came away with a strong view that every undergraduate should spend some time in the tropics.